What's up everybody, welcome back. So let's finish up the fan tool today. In the previous episode we did the geometry scripting part, and the adding of the fan is basically a child blueprint with some variables exposed, so it's not really too exciting, but for completion's sake I'm gonna show it anyway. I've also added a download for this project file in the Discord, so you can jump in the Discord and grab the files if you would like to. There's no need to become a member, I've added them to the free section, so you can just jump in and grab the files if you want to. So let's just start and wrap this up. So first of all, we need to make sure that we have some assets to work with. So I've grabbed some from the Stacklebot project, the fan and the spawn ring. So you can simply get them from the marketplace over here. It's an epic project, and if you want to join along, you can grab them from there. So with the static meshes in your project, we can create a fan. So let's go to create a new blueprint, create an actor, and this is going to be my wall fan. And let's open it up. So first of all, let's tackle the components in here. I'm going to add a scene component and call this my root. Replace it with the default scene root so the annoying billboard is gone. Then we can start adding the components. So grab a static mesh in here, and the first one is going to be the fan blade for the front side. So let's call it fan blade front. And over here we want to assign the mesh, so that's the actual fan over here. And we want to resize it a little bit. So I've played around with these variables and came up with these. Those will match the cylinder in the geometry script. So 0.28, 0.28, and then 0.28 again. So for all three axes. And this is our fan blade front. Now we want to grab this again and duplicate it. And this is going to be the fan blade back. So we want to make this a parent of the front blade. So let's attach it to the front blade and then simply turn it around 180 degrees. And we can move it a little bit back so they don't overlap each other, and that should be good. So I'm making this a child of the front blade so I can use the rotating movement component to rotate both of them in one go. So now select the root again, and we're going to add another static mesh, and this is going to be the fan ring front. So for this one we want to select the spawn pad ring over here. And again, I've looked up some values for these so they will match the geoscript. So this will be 0.39, 0.39, and then 0.78. And let's rotate it -90 on the y-axis. So it looks something like this. Now we can adjust the position a little bit, so move it back 5 units, and that should be pretty much good to go. Now we can grab this front ring and duplicate it, and this is going to be the backside ring. So again, we want to rotate it 180 degrees. And that looks pretty okay for me, so you can align everything and spend as much time as you like in here, but I'm just gonna keep it this way. So with this stuff in place, we also need a bunch of variables that we want to expose on spawn, so we can edit some stuff in here. So let's create those first. The first one is going to be the fan scale, and this is a float. So for all of the variables that we're going to create, we want to make them instance editable and exposed on spawn. So I'm not going to mention it for everything, just every variable that we put in here, instance editable, exposed on spawn. So we have our fan scale. The next one is going to be our fan rotation rate. Then I want to add one for the blade offset. So fan blade offset. So we can move the front blade back and forward if we simply want to add one blade in the center, for example, or something like that. Then I'm going to add a boolean, so add backside ring. So we can choose whether we want to add or don't add it. So this is going to be a bool. And we want to add an offset for that as well. So that's the back ring offset. That's a float. And then we're going to add a boolean for the backside blade. So add backside blade. and give that an offset as well. So that's the back blade offset. And that should be good to go. So first of all, let's grab this fan scale and make sure that we give it a default value of 1. Otherwise, we're not going to see anything in a little bit. So make sure that's a default value, good to go. Then we can go to our construction script and start setting things up in here. So let's open the construction script. First of all, we want to set the scale. So let's drag off here and set the scale 3D. And that's the actor scale 3D over here. And we can simply grab our fan scale and plug it in, and it will convert the float to a vector. So that's good to go. Then we want to set the offset for the front blade. So let's grab our fan blade front in here, and we're going to set a relative location. Plug it in over here. So we're going to grab the current relative location from the fan blade. So paste it over here, get a relative location. And for this, we're going to add a vector. So over here, we can split the pin. And then simply add our fan blade offset to the X value over here. There we go. And this will be the new relative location. So that's good to go as well. Now let's do the boolean. So let's check if we want to add a backside ring or not. So we're going to plug in our backside ring boolean. If we do, we want to make sure that it's actually there. So we might have removed it and then set this to true again. So then we need to spawn it back in. So what we're going to do is grab our fan ring back. And first of all, we're going to check if it's valid or not. Plug this into the true pin. If it's valid, so it's still here, then all we need to do is set the relative location. So what we can do is grab this stuff over here, copy it, paste it over here, plug it into the is valid pin. So we want to replace the component for the fan ring back and over here as well. And for the offset, we want to grab our back ring offset and plug that in over here. So that should be good. Now, if we previously removed it, we want to spawn it back in. So then we need to add a static mesh component. Add static mesh component. So in here, we want to make a transform for the relative transform. So drag off here, make a transform. And we can simply select our fan ring back and copy the values from here. So that's going to be -5. And then we have 180 minus 90 and grab the scale as well. So 0.39, 0.39, 0.78. And then make sure we store it in the variable again, so we can get rid of it later if we want. So grab the fan ring back, set it back over here. And then we need to set the static mesh. So drag over again, set static mesh. And we want to set it to our fan over here. And that's good. So then all we need to do is set the relative location. So plug that in here as well. Like so. So we have the isValid node. For the isValid pin, only set the location, not valid, spawn it, and then set the location. So that's good. And then we want to do the same thing for the back blade. So we can pretty much copy all of this stuff and simply paste it down here. So first of all, let's hook up all of the loose ends. And that's actually a little bit too fast because I need to do the false branch over here. So if we don't want a backside ring, then we need to destroy it. But first of all, let's make sure it's not already destroyed. So we're going to grab the isValid node as well and plug it into the false pin. If the back ring is still valid, we want to destroy the component. So drag off here, destroy component, plug that in isValid. And if it's already gone, we don't need to do anything. So now we can hook up the loose ends to the new branch over here. So the destroy component node, the is not valid pin, and also go all the way over here to the relative location setter and plug that into the second branch as well. And here we want to replace it for the backside fan. So we're going to grab the back blade boolean. Over here we want to replace the back blade component. And then for the relative location do the same. So plug in the back blade component over here 2 times and grab the back blade offset. Now if we want to spawn it over here, obviously we need to make sure we store it in the correct component. So let's change that one first. Over here we want to set it to the fan blade, so that's good to go. So over here, sorry, this was the ring. So over here we need to set it to the spawn pad ring and not the fan blade. So the first one is the ring and the second one is the blade. Now for the transform we can copy it again. So let's grab these values and paste them over here. So that's -180. And then the scale, and that should be 1 because it's attached to the parent and that's already scaled. So this will spawn the blade, and now we need to make sure that we attach it to the front blade again. So over here we can make a little bit of room, for example, and then drag off the return value and attach a component to component. The target will be the spawned blade and the parent will be the fan blade front. So we want to keep the relative location and then simply return over here. Make sure we do plug it into the return value. So I disconnected it by accident. Make sure you keep disconnected as well. So now we're spawning a new blade if it's gone, so that should be good. And over here, if we want to get rid of it, we need to make sure that it's actually here. So let's copy and paste the isValid node and replace our fan blade back. We already replaced it, so we only need to destroy the component if it's valid and plug it in here. So this should be the construction script, and right now we should have a pretty editable wall fan. There's only one thing left and we need to do that in the event graph. So if we go to begin play over here, I want to use the rotating movement component to make the fan blade rotate, but if you add that, it will simply rotate the entire actor. And what you can do, so let's add it first, rotating movement. So if we drag it in at begin play over here, we can set the component to update, but that can be only one component. So that's why I made the back blade a child of the front blade, so those will turn together. So we simply want to plug in the front blade over here. And then we're also going to set the rotation rate. Plug this into begin play. And then we can split the rotation rate pin over here and grab it from our variables, plug it into the X value, and that will make it work. So right now only the fan blades will turn and not the entire actor. So this should be good to go, and we should have a fan that's editable inside of the details panel. So if we go to the viewport right now, we can drag in our wall fan. And then over here on the side, we should be able to change everything. So, oh really? Okay, so we can scale it up and down, and we can set the rotation rate, but that won't be visible until you actually play in game. So we have the blade offset to move it around. We can add a back ring. We can move the back ring. We can grab a back blade and also move the blade on the back side. So that's pretty much good to go. So there's one thing we could do over here, and that's multiply the offset with -1. So that way you don't have to fill in a negative number to move it back. So that makes a little bit more sense. So multiply it with -1 and then plug it into the relative location and do the same thing for the other ones. So not really needed, but it will just feel a little bit more natural if you adjust the values in the details panel this way. Okay, so compile and save, that's good to go. Now we want to add this to our geometry script. So let's open up our fan tool and we can simply go to the viewport, and I'm gonna grab the cylinder for now and set it back to visible for a second. So I simply aligned the fan tool with the cylinder, so we can add a child actor in here. And on the right side in the details panel, we can set it to our wall fan. So BB wall fan. And then all we need to do is rotate it, and then it should be aligned because the scale is already correct. So over here we can set it to -90 and that should work. And so if we go back to the cylinder, we can make it hidden again, but you can use it to align everything like that if you want to. So now we want to make sure that all of the values for the wall fan update when we make changes to our geometry script. And over here we're using the rebuild generated mesh event. So you don't really want to use this to update anything else. So you can simply use the construction script, for example. So this will also fire when you move the geometry script around. So you can do all of the non-dynamic mesh related stuff in here. So what we can do is grab our child actor. And for this child actor, we want to get the actual child actor. So we need to get the variable first. And then we can cast that. So cast to our wall fan. And we're going to promote this to a variable. So we have that stored. And then we can simply set all of the variables that are in here. So we're going to drag over here. And first of all, let's set the wall fan scale. So that's the fan scale. Plug it in over here. And then we're going to promote this to a variable on the geometry script. And for the geometry script one, we simply want to enable instance editable. So we don't need the expose on spawn, only instance editable. And we're going to do that for all of the variables. So let's drag over here again and set the fan rotation rate. So make sure you hook it up and then again promote it to a variable and make that instance editable. So we have a few more to go. Let's set the blade offset. So that's the normal fan blade offset. Oh, I'm doing a getter obviously. So set blade offset. Plug it in, promote to variable, and that's instance editable in here. Then we have a boolean for the back ring and the back blade. So set back blade. Add backside. Okay, we want to add the backside blade. So let's grab the boolean, promote it in here and make it instance editable. So we have an offset for the back blade as well. So set back offset, and that's the back blade offset. Oh, freaking. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this too fast. So set back blade offset over here, promote to variable. Oh, and then my mouse is freaking out as well, so that's awesome. Promote to variable, and then make it exposed on spawn. So then we need the back ring, so set at back ring. Promote it over here, and make it instance editable. Make sure it's connected as well, and then we have an offset for the backside ring. So set the back ring offset and plug it in and promote it again. There we go. So that should be most of them, I think. Backplate, yeah, that should be good to go. So we have one extra variable that I want to add to the geometry script, and that's the fan length scale. And with that variable, I can scale up the length of the cylinder. So if we want to make a cut in a really big mesh, we can actually scale that up as well if we want to. So we can create a last variable, and that's our fan length scale. So this needs to be a float. And then we're going to make this instance editable as well. Compile it and save it. So now we have one problem, and that's if we change all of these variables inside of the construction script on the fan tool, the construction script on the wall fan will not fire, so nothing will change in our preview. So there's a pretty simple way to fix that. If we go back to our wall fan in here, inside of the construction script, we're simply going to select everything and then collapse this to a function, and let's call this something like update fan parameters. So inside of the construction script for the fan, we can simply call this function to update everything. And then for the fan tool construction script, after we set all of the variables, we can simply call that function as well. So update fan parameters. So this will make sure the preview actually changes. So that should be good to go. Now we want to go into the event graph over here, rebuild generate mesh. And over here we want to apply the scale that we apply to the fan, also apply it to the cylinder. So let's make a little bit of room after we create the dynamic mesh cylinder, and let's disconnect this pin, drag off the mesh, and we're going to set the scale. That should actually be a thing. Oh, scale mesh. Okay, so look for scale mesh. You want to plug it into the success pin. Make sure you keep it hooked up over here as well. Now we can split the pin over here. The length scale is going to be the Z value over here. And the normal fan scale is going to be used for the X and the Y value. And now it will scale up accordingly to our child actor. So they will scale up relative to each other. So this will make the hole increase or decrease. That should work. And now to make our lives a little bit easier, we can go inside of our bake and replace function. And all the way at the end, after we deleted the mesh that we modified, we can spawn in our fan, for example. So we can simply spawn an actor from class. Make sure we hook it up back to the release all compute meshes. And then in here we can spawn our wall fan. And simply plug in all the variables. So we have everything good to go in here. The scale, the rotation rate, offset, the booleans. So we can simply pass them on, and that should work. Now there is one thing we need to do in here. That's set the transform as well, by the way, but there's another thing. So let's grab the transform first. We can grab the child actor and from here simply get the world transform. And plug that into the spawn transform. And the other thing we need to do is grab the fan scale over here, set the default value to 1, and do the same thing for the fan length scale, also set default to 1. Compile and save. And now this should work. So let's have a look. Grab a viewport in here. So this is not my fan tool, this is the wall fan, so we can delete that. And let's grab our fan tool and see if everything is still working. So first of all, let's rotate it. And then we want to assign the mesh to modify in our details panel. So let's select it over here. And I think that's good to go. So let's hide the mesh to modify, and we're actually still cutting a hole, so that's good. And now we should be able to adjust all of these variables and everything should update. So we can mess around with the scale. The rotation rate actually only shows up in game, so we cannot see it over here. Then we have the blade offset to move it around. That's working. We can add a backside blade over here and move that around the back ring. And also move that around. And to test the scale, we need a bigger mesh. So we can go over here, for example, and check if our length scale is working as well. So if we change the mesh to modify and hide the current mesh. So right now we're not cutting all the way through. And if we increase the length scale, we can change that as well. So that's pretty much good to go. So let's adjust this for fun. So if we enter a new asset base name, then we can see if this is working by hitting the bake and replace mesh. So move the fan tool out of the way. And it actually is kind of working. It's only not applying the back ring offset. So that's probably some pin or variable that's messed up somewhere. So let's have a quick look in game. That's good to go. The fan is actually here. The rotation rate and stuff is working. So let me quickly check out the mistake I made with the backside ring and then we're done. Okay, it looks like I was trying to do things too quickly again. So in the bake and replace mesh function, I simply didn't hook up the correct variables over here. So I added the blade to the fan boolean and switch this up. So make sure you connect up everything correctly and then it should work. So this is the back blade offset, and then the back ring and the back ring offset. And if you hook them up correctly, then everything will spawn in correctly as well. So that's good to go. And we have a fan tool to make our lives easier. And you can easily do the same thing for doors, corridors, windows, whatever you like pretty much. So again, I added the download for this project to my free project files in the Discord. So if you want to grab the example project, just jump in the Discord and grab the download. There's no need to become a member for YouTube or anything like that. It's free, just grab it. Thanks for watching everybody. If you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and I'll be back soon for more. Talk to you later. Bye bye.